So good morning, dear students. Today we'll be starting with our next lecture in Unit 2, that is expatriate selection. And under expatriate selection, we'll be discussing factors that actually lead to the selection of expatriate. We did discuss recruitment, under which we discussed how you should source it and how you should go for demand and supply of your, um, international assignee. So now we have certain factors which influence your selection. So these factors in expatriate selection are technical ability, cross-cultural suitability, family requirements, M&E requirements, language, and cross-cultural country cultural requirements. So all these factors are going to influence on the expatriate selection. That means when you are offering assignment to the employee. So these might be the factors that might hinder your selection. So basically, selection criteria, it has become a very critical international issue. So it should be taken with utmost care that selection is a two-way process when we talk about international assignments. So um, either when you are offering it to the prospective candidate, he may reject the expatriate assignment, quite possible for individual reasons such as family considerations or for situational factors. And it is a challenge for those who are responsible for selecting staff for international assignments and to determine the appropriate selection criteria, that what should be the selection criteria which which should be adopted for selecting or choosing a particular employee for international assignment. So the first factor, which now we'll discuss all these factors one by one. First is technical ability. When we talk about technical ability, so employees' ability to perform the required task of a particular job, it is a very important selection factor. You are sending a person from parent company to host country. So technical, whether he is having technical skills or not to perform that particular job. Now it is not only technical skill, but here in technical means expertise. So if a person is having expertise in the job for which you are sending him, it becomes a very essential criteria. So even our studies say that multinationals, they give very much, they place this technical ability at a very high weightage while selecting a person for international assignment. So they they might take reference from their past performance and how how well he is adapted to learn the new assignment in a new foreign cultural environment. So that is how technical ability will influence your selection criteria. Now, second is cross-cultural, suitability. When we talk about cross-cultural suitability, that means whether he's competent enough, he will be adjusted in new culture. That becomes a very important criteria while employee is accepting the international assignment. So now, when we talk about cross-cultural suitability, we have two factors. One is intercultural competence, which means that in what is intercultural competence? It is the ability to adjust to a foreign culture, that how able you are to adopt the foreign culture. So that is intercultural competence, and it will vary from person to person, right? So under this intercultural competence, we may have soft skills. Soft skills means like the type of language, the type of communication he is having, and how equally he will be comfortable in adjusting to the new language system, the new cultural environment, the new local environment over there. So that might become a hindrance. Then second is intercultural. One is intercultural competence, and second is related to cultural intelligence. So, cultural intelligence is a specific form of intelligence which helps an individual to grasp and behave effectively in situations which are characterized by cultural diversity. Now, what does it mean, cultural intelligence? For example, we have two employees whom we are sending from parent company to host country. One person is able to adapt and to grasp the nitty gritty of the cultural say cultural values of the host country, but the other person is may not be equally grasping those small things about the cultural values of the country. So this is cultural intelligence. Although both of them are being adaptable, both of them have got the intercultural competence, they want to adjust, but relatively at two different paces and speed. So that is how your this cultural cross cultural suitability, whether the candidate would be suitable for the foreign assignment or not. Then ability to adjust to a foreign culture, which makes the part of cross cultural suitability only. So this factor basically is one of the important factors which lead to expatriate failure. So that means, despite the fact that a person is he thinks that he can get adjusted and accommodated to the culture, but when it comes to actually facing the culture, may it be language, may it be food, may it be entertainment, modes of entertainment, so there could be a cultural shock for the employee. So how comfortably he is getting adjusted to the foreign culture, that becomes very, very important criteria for selection of international assignment. Then we have family requirements. Family requirement, it is a very important influence factor on the success of international assignment. Despite the importance that you have an accompanying spouse or a partner, but still the focus is on expatriate, right? Family is supporting factor. So expatriate performance in the host location is very important factor. So he will be able to perform in a host culture only if he has got a sound back of mind that my family is comfortably getting adjusted to the new environment, and family, whether it is spouse or rest of the family members, they are getting adjusted to the experiences. So that family requirement has a great influence on the expatriates performance. So now, for example, a person is he has been sent to the international assignment, and he is accompanied by spouse, he is accompanied by wife. Now wife, she'll carry a lot of burden with her, right? For example, the responsibility of for settling family into social new social, altogether new social setup. So and particularly without having networks is that you don't have any relative over there in the foreign location. So and moreover, like in most of the developing countries, employment of house servants are not available like we have in India. So it becomes one of the very predominant factor which makes it very difficult in adjusting to the new environment. And a second point could be that, for example, a spouse was working in India. Now she is accompanying a employee to the international assignment. She may not be working over there. She may not be having a working visa. So in that particular case, like it could be due to immigration regulation, or the type of qualification she is having may be suitable for Indian culture or Indian working background. She may not be suitable for foreign location. So that these all concerns, they affect your selection of international assignment. Similarly, education of children, it may be a very important concern for the spouse. So these reasons, because of these reasons, and plus the type of culture we are open culture we are having in in European countries, that might adversely affect emotional and mental health of a spouse. If you remember, we discussed in our previous in last say last year, we discussed that how Tatas were sued by a by a wife of a expatriates for having that living relationship allowance, right? So with the result, the divorce rate in case of expatriates is increasing, and it is becoming a very critical factor while you are assigning a person on international assignment, right? So these are the things when we talk about family, how family requirements become an inhibition or a factor that influence your selection of expatriate. Then we have country or cultural requirements. Now country or cultural requirements is, it depends on the legal system over there, depends on the political system over there, it depends on the economic system over there, and on the basis of that you are going to decide whether you want to have PCN or TCN, right? So quite possible when you are sending PCN or TCN, then you have to arrange for visa, you have to arrange for work permits. So in some cases, multinational may wish to use expatriate and has selected a candidate for international assignment. So only to find the transfer blocked by the host government. Now you have selected, you have shortlisted a candidate, but now because of the cultural requirements or the country requirements, may it be the legal requirements, or may it be the political requirements, or say social requirements over there, you may not be able to send the shortlisted candidate, right? For example, let us suppose in countries like Gulf countries, predominantly like Jeddah, we have Riyadh. So there they prefer they prefer Muslims over non-Muslim say employees. And even if you are now sending a non-Muslim employee to countries like Riyadh, Jeddah, then they are supposed to wear that hijab and burqa over there, and the eating habits over there, they are quite different from what we are having in India when it comes to being a vegetarian and non-vegetarian. So requirements that might affect your selection of a candidate, right? So it is very important that HR or international manager, he must be aware about these requirements of the countries. So similarly, in case of female expatriates, so female expatriates, some of the countries like Southeast Asian regions and some Middle East countries, they do not want female expatriates. They do not issue work permits to female expatriates, which might result in selection of HCNs rather than expatriates. So you wish to send a female female to the for the international assignment, but because of the non-issuance of the work permit and visa by the government over there, so you are forced to have HCN rather than expatriate, right? So to overcome this problem, some of large multinationals like we have Shell, we have Unilever, we have British Airways, Siemens, what they have done, they have established an organization called Permits Foundation. So they try to promote the improvement of work permit regulations for the spouses of expatriates over there. So they have close association with they work closely with the governments over there in the host country and try to bridge up this gap, right? Now, then we have M&E requirements. When we talk about M&E requirements are situational factors which often have an influence on selection decisions. Now, M&E is your multinational enterprise requirements. For example, multinational enterprise may consider some proportion of expatriates to local staff. That means it purely depends on the staffing approach. So you may require use of PCNs and TCNs under a normal circumstance, but multinationals which are operating in parts of maybe Eastern Europe and China, what they have fixed a ratio, selection ratio, that what should be the percentage of PCN, TCN, and HCN in a particular organizations which are operating in countries like China and Eastern Europe countries. So you will have to think about all these M&E requirements. And when we talk about M&E requirements, we have this mode of operation involved. Then we have duration and type of assignments, and then amount of knowledge transfer. So talking about this mode of operation involved, that means selecting staff to work an international joint venture. It may involve major input from a local partner, because now you are selecting staff. So you need to have proper feedback and input from the local partner over there, which might be constrained by the agreement on the selection processes, agreement between the local partner and parent country. Then duration and type of assignments. You have to be very, very specific. Maybe family members, they do not want to accompany an expatriate when it is a very short assignment. For example, you are sending an international assignee for 3 to 6 months. So obviously in that case, family will not like to move with the expatriate. So duration and type of assignment will directly influence on the family requirements. If the duration is more, quite possible that they will be accompanied by the spouse or family members, right? Then amount of knowledge. Then amount of knowledge is very important, because the amount of knowledge expatriate is having, he is supposed to transfer that knowledge to the people who are there in host country. So he should be able to transfer that knowledge base to the employees over there. So if the nature of the job is to train, for example, local staff, then M&E may include training skills as a selection criteria, that how comfortable this expatriate would be in training to the local staff. Right? So M&E requirements, they form very, very important aspect of your selection criteria. Then we have language. When we talk about language, it is basically the ability to speak the local language. So how comfortably you are speaking, the local language, or how comfortably you are able to understand. Because until and unless you are able to understand, important is understanding. Second comes communicating. You might not be that comfortable in communication, that means in talking maybe Spanish, maybe German fluently, but you have to be at the receptive level. You should at least understand, what other person is trying to make you understand. So language becomes a very important criteria in selection decision. Now we have two things. When we talk about language, we have two languages. One is local language, second is corporate language. Let us suppose you are sending a person from India to China. Right? Now China is having local language as Chinese. But since the company's corporate language is English, that means person whom you are sending has to be comfortable in both the languages, because corporate language is English and the local language is Chinese. Had it been, for example, China only, then the corporate and local language would be same, that is Chinese. But we are talking about MNCs, so more or less your corporate language is going to be English. So you have to have, that means now where it will affect on your reporting systems, procedures, standardizing, because that would be purely in English. And when it comes to communicating person to person, it would be local. the person, the host country national would not be comfortable speaking English. So then you have to understand the local language. So it is very important that it has to be for both, whether it comes to corporate language or it comes to local language. So it becomes a expatriate selection issue for multinationals from non-English speaking countries that adopt English as a corporate language. As I said, for example, China. China is non-English speaking country, but now they are working on it. So it would be, unless the posting is to a country with a shared knowledge, for example, India. India, we do not have problem with English speaking. Now, for example, Spanish. A Spanish multinational might use Spanish as a corporate language. So selecting a PCN to head its new subsidiary, for example, in Mexico, he will not face the same language issue as Spanish multinational with English as its corporate language. So it is very important that you keep in mind what is the corporate language and what is the local language. It is not just the language we are talking about, but both the languages, corporate language as well as the local language, which you have to keep into consideration. So these were the factors that might affect in your expatriate selection. So after discussing these factors that influence your expatriate selection, we have now selection methods. Now, how do we select? Now, talking about selection methods, first is interview. When we talk about interview, basically different organizations may rely on different procedures, right? It is not hard and fast that they will go for all these methods that is depicted over in this slide. So it will purely depend from organization to organization, from assignment to assignment, the type of selection criteria you might use. So first and foremost is interview, right? Now interview is when we say interview, we are not talking about only international assignee or expatriates interview. No, it is interview of spouse as well. Because if it is a long-term assignment, you are sending spouse with the expatriates. So she too will be, or he too will be interviewed by the company. So now it would be best done with the representative of home country, who is representing the technical requirements of the position, and the representative of the host country. That means both. When who would be the interviewer? Interviewer one would be from home country as well as from the host country. And an interculturalist. That means who will judge whether they will be able to adapt to the new culture or not. So interview is for both international assignee as well as spouse or partner. Then we have formal assessment. When we talk about formal assessment, it is basically there are a number of formal assessment instruments which are designed by industrial psychologists, and that primarily evaluate a candidate's personal traits and competencies, which would be found whether he will be able to manage successfully foreign cultural adjustment or not. Will he be able to adapt? Is he flexible? Is he open enough to experience new culture? And how much he is good at interpersonal skills. So now here the criteria is, when we go for formal assessment, you need to have an instrument which is reliable and valid. When we discussed in talent management, we have already discussed it in depth what reliability and validity means. So it is very important the instrument which is being used to assess a candidate's eligibility on this particular parameter, it should be reliable as well as valid, so as to predict expatriate success, right? So IHR or other managers who seek to use such instruments, they should get evidence for their reliability and validity of the tool which they are using. So this is how you can go for formal assessment. You can use n number of assignment tools for assessing all this. The only thing is that it should be reliable and valid. Then third is committee decision. Committee decision means, as you go by the word, is committee. That means for the process of selecting the individual for international assignment, a committee is formed, and committee's decision is made up of someone from corporate HR, home country, host country, and maybe some director of training and development. So all these 5% or four people, they will make a committee and decide based on individual preferences. Preference is very, very important, because he should be receptive to the offer which you are offering to the individual. So based on the individual's preference, maybe assessment of past performance and future potential, whether he should be given a foreign assignment or not. So committee is going to decide about the selection of the candidate. Then next is our career planning. When we talk about say career planning process, so it is the choice of international assignment. Because it is career, might be, the other day we were discussing that might be employee is very, very excited about having a career in international location, and simultaneously other person whom you want to send for international assignment, he may not be that excited for accepting that offer. So it is his choice of international assignee, whether he wants to take it up as a career or not. Then what is the succession planning available with the MNE for that particular employee? So purely career planning, whether you are able to fit in that international assignment in the career planning or in the career path of the international assignee. If you are able to fit in and he is ready to accept it, fine enough. If not, then he is not going to accept it. Then self-selection. Now, what is the self-selection? Self-selection is that you are just, asking about the interest of the, individual, right? You are just throwing it open to the individuals, and then having names, whether maybe, for example, I'm seeing that there is a vacancy in foreign location. So I might be very enthusiastic about it, and I might apply against that vacancy. So similarly, any other person who is working in that particular organization might apply against that. And when it is application, when you are asking for the, applying against a vacancy, it is not only in one country. It could be in other countries as well where we are operating. So you are throwing it open at a global platform. So a formal assessment now would be taken into account, where employee would be self-assessing on the factors of relocation, experience, skills, attitude, which are required for the successful overseas assignment. So all these self-assessment may result in the individual realizing maybe that they aren't ready now. For example, initially when you applied for the position, you did not assess all those things. So you just saw that a position is vacant in US, and out of excitement you just applied. But then when you were exposed to the self assessment, and you are now assessing whether you are actually ready for the assignment or not. So on the basis of that, you will be able to make out whether you want to take up that assignment or not. So rather than relocating, they begin a process to gain the skills. So fine, you feel that there are some skills that need to be updated. So you might ask for updation of the skills, or you might go for, maybe it requires certain training or certain exposures to a particular set of maybe skills, maybe set of environment, so as to be successful in the international assignment. So this self assessment process, it becomes a part of larger career planning process. Then once you have assessed yourself whether you want to take up the assignment or not, now candidates might be free either to opt or to withdraw from that particular assignment. Then we have international job posting and individual bid. Now, individual bid, when we say talk about under this say internal job posting, so it is combined with interviews and self assessment and selection assessment. So you are actually bidding for an individual. Now, what is bidding? Bidding is that the committee might bid, for, you might vote for one person that he is suitable for the job. Other might, now you are seeing that who is getting the highest, majority of acceptance from the say committee, on the basis of assessment that has been done, on the basis of, maybe self assessment, and on the basis of past performances. Then it might lead to recommendations. Recommendation generally are from senior executives or your immediate line managers with overseas HR needs, because your immediate boss or line manager is the person who has seen you working in and out. He knows whether you are competent enough to handle. He will be the first person to tell whether an international assignee is competent enough, will be competent enough, and how open he is to learn and adopt new culture or new environment. So it is recommendation. Generally, recommendations work very good in the case of international assignments, because even line managers, they have an idea, informal conversation with the assignee as well, whether the family would be okay with it or not. So based on the recommendations, you can select a particular candidate. Then we have last, assessment centers. Obviously, very few organizations, they use assessment center for evaluating candidates for international assignments. For domestic this selection, companies go for assessment centers, but to find out a suitability of employee for international assignments, this is a very this is not very frequently used. It is very rare for MNEs to use assessment centers and to adequately think through the impact of culture on everything, maybe from the nature of exercises which are used to judge the cultural sensitivities or evaluators, and to be able to assess whether international candidate would be suitable for assignment or not. Then after these selection methods, these are few selection methods. Then company, it might vary from company to company, and company might develop altogether a new method for selecting international assignee. So, but these are predominantly commonly used selection methods for selecting your international assignment. Then when we talk about say a selection of international assignment, so when a company when a company selects staff for an international assignment, it has to think of the inherent challenges for the assignee, first for getting a better overview of requirements of a particular vacancy. It is very important. Otherwise, let us suppose you are sending a person on international assignment, but if you have overlooked all these challenges, your expatriate success is going to fail miserably. You are investing in the say candidate, you are not investing on the relocation but on training as well. So all that investment will be going for a 6. So challenges will depend on destination and the company's policy. right? So we have certain challenges. So first is linking staffing plans with the evolution of the MNC. When we talk about linking staffing plans with the say evolution, so what exactly it means, it depends, like which particular, for example, you are sending a person from India to UK. In India, organization life cycle, evolution of say is at growth phase. That is why you are going for international assignment. But in host country, it might not be in the growth phase. It may be in inception phase, because we are sending you to set up the host unit, right? And then second could be establishing the technology team to begin core operational activities. Now you have to establish, because you are setting up a host unit. So there could be a challenge of having a technology team who could oversee and who can go with the operational activities. Who's going to control it? So it might create a challenge, right? Then we have like full-blown operations of the host unit with significant role in establishing global objectives and targets. Now, it could be possible that you are being sent to a to a country where actually it is a fully operational unit. Now it is not, you don't have to set up, but it is already functioning fully. And then your role becomes very crucial, because now you don't have to set up the say company or the plant over there, but it is already established. So it becomes more challenging for you to make your role significant in already established host plant. So you will have to correlate global objectives and targets over there. Then what could be the other challenge? It could be strong operational leadership at the unit level, and while globally consolidating with parents, from parent company leadership and host country leadership. Whatever would be the approach, that would be entirely, you'll have to get accustomed and adjusted to that. Problem arises with the ethnocentric still is okay, because the person who is heading the say subsidiary is from the parent company. But if it is a polycentric approach, then it would be again a very challenging task and Herculean task for international assignee to prove his worth in the subsidiary, right? Second is our what we said, that staffing orientation and approach of staffing. We have already discussed it in a number of times, that what should be the staffing approach, what should be the staffing orientation, whether it should be ethnocentric, whether it should be polycentric, it should be regiocentric, or it should be geocentric. So this we will not discuss again, that how we are going to go for the operation, because we have already discussed it number of times. So all approaches are having its certain advantages and disadvantages, and all this the approach is again dependent on the type of country you wish to open up your subsidiary, or where the subsidiary is operating. So based on that, the staffing orientation, what should be the approach of staffing, we have we have certain factors which you need to consider for choosing the approach. So first is political and legal concerns. Obviously, political and legal concerns, when we are talking about, you have to be, you have to see the political environment of a country and the legal concerns, as we just discussed, that sometimes it could be barrier. Like Gulf countries, they might not entertain female expatriates. So if they are not, or there could be a policy like when this US president Donald Trump, when he took over president of US, the first thing he announced was that we do not require, we want employment to be generated in US. We do not want expatriates to come in US. So now it was a legal concern. So that means organizations which were operating in US, now instead of sending expatriates, they were forced to have host country nationals, so as to generate employment in the particular geographical location. So that will change approach from ethnocentric to polycentric approach, right? Then second is level of development in foreign locations. Now level of development in foreign location, how developed a country is where you are having your subsidiary. So you'll have to keep pace of your operations, keeping in mind the development of the particular country. You are, for example, you are operating in, say, Japan. Japan in terms of technology is a highly developed country as compared to India. So approach would, because the technical requirements would be now different. Quite possible that we might not have the skills which are required in subsidiary. It is not being supplied by the parent country. Or it could be vice versa. You are operating in a country where the technical skills are not available. Despite the fact that you wanted to have polycentric approach, now you will be forced to have ethnocentric approach because the skill available in the local country is not up to the mark. And then technology and the nature of product. Then the nature of product is the product life cycle. Which life cycle the product is into, and the technology which is used for that, because it will purely then determine the type of skills and the nature of customers and market to be tapped on. And for that, the skills required would be different. If the nature of product, if your product is in inception phase, you want to get your product accepted by the customers. So despite may be quite possible that you wanted to have ethnocentric approach, but the local language becomes a barrier, because salesperson or the marketing person may not be able to communicate to the host country nationals with the required language. So you will be forced to have host country nationals so as to communicate with the customers over there, with the clients over there. Then organization life cycle we have already discussed. Age and history of subsidiary, whether it is a new subsidiary, whether it is it is already in which particular phase of cycle it is. Because the more you are more experienced you become in operating a particular local geographical location, so more confident you become in having skills and in tapping the local market or parent market. Then organization and national cultural differences. If there is a huge difference in the cultural differences, then it would be very difficult for the expatriate to accept the assignment in the local market. So it would become a hindering factor in making your approach suitable for the subsidiary. So based on these factors, you may choose your approach, whether you want to have ethnocentric approach, polycentric approach, regiocentric or geocentric approach, right? And this we have already discussed. These last two, managing expatriates and female expatriates, because now we will be discussing expatriates at length. So these 2 points would be taken up in our next lecture, right? Thank you. This was all for today's lecture. I hope you have understood and